Hello, and welcome back to Loud and Proud Orlando, here with a very special episode. We've got a guest with us, Taylor Williams from Orlando City, UK, joined us here on the podcast to look at our preseason predictions. So we're going to go all the way back to, I think it was February when we did our preseason predictions, and we laid out on the line how we thought it was going to go. And now's the time when we look back at those receipts and see how right or how wrong we were. So Taylor, thank you for joining us. How are you, buddy?
Good, yeah, good to be joining you guys. Shame it's in these circumstances, but such is life. You get peaks and valleys, and it's a valley right now.
Yeah, we'll look at the optimism we had in a minute. Luis, how you doing?
No, doing good. Thank you, Taylor, for joining us. We appreciate you and always appreciate your input and what you bring to the Orlando City community. So, definitely, no one saw all this happening, but we'll discuss point by point. If you're watching, make sure that you're subscribed to the channel and also comment. And then what we'll do is we'll reply to you on the next pod coming up on the next episode. So make sure that you're leaving your comments and we'll take it from there. So thank you, everyone.
Yes, indeed. All right, let's dive right in. The first category that we had in preseason predictions was most minutes. Luis, you went Angulo. I went Angulo. Taylor went Angulo. Paulo went Jansen. Nobody had the actual, which was Pedro Galese, which seems like an oversight by us. But nobody picked the goalkeeper. Taylor, your thoughts on Pedro with the most minutes?
It does seem like an oversight. As some experts we are, right? Starting strong. But no, I mean, Angulo must have been podium though, right? Top 3, surely.
Yeah, for sure.
Pull it up. He was close.
I mean, he's one of Papi's foot soldiers, isn't he, Angulo? But yeah, maybe it was a problem Galese played so many minutes, right?
Jansen was the other one that was close. Yeah, I mean,
probably Schlegel also, right?
Schlegel, yeah. So Schlegel and Ojeda was actually second.
Yeah, well, so that makes sense.
Ojeda's second behind Galese, and then you have Schlegel in third, and then Jansen close behind those. So I would not have thought Ojeda was
I swear Angulo never got dropped all season. He played a lot.
Yeah, he had, according to this, in MLS, we're talking, he had 2,300 minutes. Yeah. And Martin Ojeda in second had 2,600 or so minutes, whereas Pedro had 2,800 minutes. So, yeah, Angulo not as near the top as we predicted. Which is surprising. Maybe the addition of Tyrese Spicer has something to do with that at the end of the season. All right, most yellow cards. Schlegel is what I went for. Paulo went for Cesar, and actually everyone else went for Cesar. Luis went for Schlegel. Luis, you're the only one who got it right. So I don't know. Should we give out like a yellow card to you? Should there be an award for guessing the most yellow cards?
Well, 70, I think the team had like around Orlando City was 10th in yellow cards this season with 72 yellow cards and 3 red cards whole entire season. So I just think that the reason why Schlegel's there is because he literally was the anchor of that back line when it comes to just leadership, and also physically. I think this was one of his best years. Physically, he's not really the most like skilled defender, right? But he's a very greedy, physical defender that always, in the end, will result to pull somebody from the jersey if needed be, and getting the yellow card and taking it. If he cannot do it with skill, you know what I mean? So it just kind of made a little bit of sense because Robin is getting to a point in which clearly he's aging a little bit, and I think based on the results of this season, clearly I think one of the things that is going to be huge for next season is an overhaul on the back line. Especially if Alex Freeman decides to stay or not. I just think a major overhaul in the back end is well needed. But Schlegel, there you go, man.
Yeah, he had 11 yellow cards on the season, a lot more than the next person, which is surprisingly Pedro Gallese is next, tied with Jansen, Anatuesta, and Cesar, all with 6 yellow cards in MLS play. So, yeah, I mean, Schlegel far and above. It seems like every game he played, he found a way to get a yellow card, right? Even when he was on good behavior. And I think with Cesar not playing as much, I think that's why we went this way. All right, moving on. Most assists, Luis, Paula, and Taylor all had Ojeda. You guys are all right. I was wrong. I went with Atuesta. Taylor, please tell me, how you feel about getting most assists right with Martin Ojeda.
Well, I'm really going to cheer this one because it's the only one I've got right. So I've done this Excel spreadsheet. But yeah, I mean, I did my write-up kind of post-mortem, I'm going to call it, the other day after the wildcard game. And I'm tying that to Ojeda because with the season he just put in for us, broke all the records for goal contributions, what have you. I cannot believe it all counted for a 9th place finish and, not even really making the playoffs. I cannot believe it. But individually speaking, and next week we're going to run our Orlando UK awards that we do at the end of each season. And, he's going to win our player of the year, isn't he? Spoiler alert. But he was absolutely amazing this year. And the thing I want to say on Tincho is that there were big shoes to fill this season after Facundo Torres left. I, for one, saw the rumors with Pasalic in the offseason. I was like, is he really the guy? He was brilliant. But Ojeda took his game to new heights. I just have to shout out that goal against Necaxa, that volley. I mean, what a volley that was. Like, we're all feeling low, aren't we, since that wildcard game. But I did have a little glance back for my own sanity in the week at some of our goals of the season. We had Pasalic against DC's right up there as well. But that Ojeda volley in Leagues Cup and just his all-round leadership. I don't think any of us expected him to have quite how good a season he had. We've all got him there for most assists, but the goals as well. I mean, I'm interested to ask you both and flip the question, where is he now in kind of all-time Orlando City players? I think he's really gazumped a few players this season.
I mean, he's had statistically the best season, right? I mean, 20 goals in all competitions, 13 assists in all competitions. Luis, you want to speak to Taylor's question there?
Yeah, I mean, I think Ojeda is taking the mantle of the DP of Orlando City right now. I think him and Alex Freeman had monster seasons, and they carry out the team. I felt at the end of the second part of the season for Orlando City after the Miami game, he kind of set the expectation that every game he was going to score, but also there's a lack of responsibility on the attacking third as well. The strikers and the wingers, Angulo and maybe Muriel, if they would have pulled their way, it would have made his job a little easier and we would have probably had. But you're forcing Ojeda to attack and defend and also be the leader and also be the face. So you're putting a player that probably in his career, this is the most minutes he's ever played. Finally getting used to the MLS system. It cost him a little bit when he came first from Godoy Cruz to now do all these roles and nobody pulling their way over there aside of Marco Pasalic. It kind of I felt like he took a little bit of a dip right at the end. But I don't hold him against him. I think he should have been in the All-Star game.
100%.
And I don't know why, but that's another question.
Yeah. All right. You mentioned the goals there. Most goals we had Luis, Paula, and Taylor all had Enrique, and I had Martin Ojeda for most goals. So it was the opposite of the most assists where y'all were wrong on this one.
You're right.
I got this one right. So I think I remember in preseason talking about the fact that I thought he was going to be the guy who a lot of the balls, that final ball landed to was going to be Ojeda. That's why I put Atuesta as most assists because I thought he was going to be the one feeding it a lot of the time. Turns out, Ojeda's just feeding himself, I guess. the ball a lot of the time in the scenario, getting both goals and assists. But yeah, I mean, Luis mentioned it. What more can we say about Tincha this season? He's just with the Faku leaving, and I think that was really a big part of it. Was there's a hole that he stepped into, and I think everything that we predicted for him this year, as we'll talk about now, with him being Player of the Year for all of us. He definitely stepped up and is without a doubt the Player of the Year. I mean, Taylor, can you argue anything against Martin Ojeda being Player of the Year?
Absolutely not. One thing I will add, though, is that his hat trick against the Revs mid-season was our first hat trick.
Amazing.
Yeah, that's a
Kyle Larin. If the diehards, could cast their minds back at New York Red Bulls years and years and years ago, a decade ago. That's how long it's taken an Orlando City player to score a hat trick. That's quite remarkable for me. But Tincho did it, and yeah, hopefully we can see. Hopefully we're not waiting another decade before the next one.
No. So in the predictions, myself, Paola, John, Taylor, all of us, we all had Ojeda in the Player of the Year, and he is undoubtedly all of ours Player of the Year. I don't think anybody is getting close to him. Sadly, maybe Marco, but the numbers just they don't match up at all. Young Player of the Year. All right, this one I think answers itself, but I will let Luis go on a rant here about how awesome Alex Freeman is.
Yeah, I mean, high ceiling for the kid. I mean, very humble, very level-headed. I think his off-season work ethic, the videos he was posting about him going into this athletic camps, kind of doing track and field and doing like NFL like combine like trainings for soccer is pretty impressive. The off season is like you don't stop working in your craft, and you kind of saw the work ethic. You saw kind of what he was doing in MLS Next Pro already and being very influential in that squad. And it just kind of made sense. Also, when this is I think I never mentioned it, talking to some players like in just after the post press conferences, they'll come and say, hey, there is a kid in the sparring team. He is ready to take a position from the first team. And Pedro said it, Dagger said it, like they're like, he's ready. Like, and so that kid was Alex Freeman. So when John interviewed him, for here at LPO, it kind of it made more sense, like how he, I think you can mention that, John, about what happened there. And he was saying,
yeah, I mean, he's just talking about how he's going to get minutes this year, and I just remember him being like, "I'm going to really try to break into the first team," and then here we are a year later, and it almost felt like at the end of the season he had like license to go where he wanted. Almost, it was like went from being an introductory player to a key player in the squad within a season. Taylor, your thoughts on Alex?
Remarkable, really, isn't it? Soccer, like how much can happen, in just a season. I actually, on Alex Freeman, what I wanted to say is, you guys were at the preseason games. The last time we did this, obviously with these predictions that we're obviously seeing we're horribly wrong on a lot of them today. But I remember you two guys said to me on that podcast back in February, you said, no, I've seen Alex Freeman in preseason and he's got the bit between his teeth and this is going to be a real breakout year. And really, when you think back to those, after the Union home opener, the defeat, he that first couple of games, when he scored his first goal for us, got his first assists. Absolutely amazing. It's absolutely amazing to see. As a supporter of a club, you love to see wins, you love to see championships, you love to see beautiful goals, but you love to see your own homegrown players really make a name for themselves. And what's so impressive is that it wasn't only for us, this season. I mean, club and country, Alex Freeman.
yeah, 100%.
Youngest ever player to start 6 consecutive matches in the Gold Cup for the US men's national team. Absolutely incredible. And what I wrote up, and you'll see a lot more from me next week in our awards, but the thing about Alex Freeman, John said he can, almost take his pick from, the admirers. He's got many admirers in Europe. But the incredible thing is with Freeman, that he pretty much come from nowhere. It was just 10 minutes of MLS action he had for us before the start of this year. So really, Ojeda is our player of the year, hands down, for his goals and assists. But Freeman, Absolutely incredible. And it's so nice that he's a homegrown. He's an Orlando guy as well. Let go by Inter Miami at 15. And, he's really made a name for us. And if there's any Palace and Orlando fans out there, mid-season, you might be aware of the Twitter account and HLCTO. He's a massive, massive Crystal Palace fan. He actually messaged me mid-season and he said, Taylor, I love this Alex Freeman kid. Can you tell me more about him? And he really is, a lot of people.
I can see him signing for Palace.
I can see him signing.
That right wing, Daniel Munoz kind of.
A mid-table Prem side that gives him time to develop and learn and doesn't expect big things immediately. Yeah,
right.
Bournemouth, I can see it. It'll happen, something like that.
So
I just love the grit Crystal Palace has as a team, and I think he'll fit perfectly if he decides to go there.
So what were you going to say, Taylor, before we interrupt you? Sorry.
No worries at all. It will be interesting, won't it, to see, his days in Orlando probably numbered now. It was Villarreal who was the team most interested in him mid-season. I actually did think that was going to come to avail mid-season, but they signed Oluwaseyi and they've got Tejon Buchanan, so they've got kind of MLS links at Villarreal now. But it'll be interesting to see. And in a World Cup year as well, I mean, he's firmly in Pochettino's plans for the national team now. So to see him playing at the World Cup would be absolutely amazing.
I think it's an interesting contract situation because he obviously is coming into his last year in January. That would be 1 year away, which means in the summer, right before the World Cup or during the World Cup, actually, he would technically become available for transfer on a free 6 months out from the expiry of his contract. My belief is that nothing happens this winter. He stays with us. And then I think in the summer, they sign a deal before that 6 months hits, so that he knows where he's going before the World Cup, but he's not leaving until like next season, or maybe they sign him 6 months early on the contract, etc. So
as a supporter, I would love that scenario.
I just can't see him moving right now. I just don't. I think with the World Cup being so close, I think it's a big risk for him to move. And that's why I think that we're going to hold on to him for the beginning of the season. And then after the World Cup, he'll probably go on his way, is my guess, but we've got to cash in at a certain point. We really do. Other young player of the years, Paula picked Caraballo, which was, I think, an awesome pick. We were all very excited about Caraballo. He did also have a fairly good young season, if you imagine it that way. Like he broke onto the scene in Open Cup. He scored against the Rowdies.
Yes,
that was great to see. And then the other young player, which Taylor picked, was Nico Rodriguez. Taylor, tell me how you're feeling about your Nico pick.
I cringe at that one a bit. He's young. He's
still
young.
got hope for Nico. Luis, you're not on board, I know.
He's a little green, but I think what he saw in the last few matches when he came in, he tried to be that change of pace. I think he's getting used to the league. I just would like him be less glamour, and he posts so much on social media. Sometimes it just doesn't make any sense.
Less haircut shots.
Yeah, like less haircut shots, more
shots.
Yeah, more assists. More goals and less.
Taylor, tell us what your thoughts on Nico's first season.
Disappointing, to be honest with you. I mean, when you take players out of South America, well, anywhere for that matter, you don't really know what you're going to get. The guy's young, but I have to say, didn't really impress me. He didn't have a ton of opportunities in the year, but he never really impressed me at all, if I'm honest. So yeah, I got that one horribly wrong.
Alrighty. Defender of the year. This is we all, I think, were a bit off here. Maybe even me. Dagger Dan was the choice for Luis, Paula, and Taylor, which I think in hindsight was probably a fair idea if Alex Freeman hadn't been so good and sort of taken him out of his place. At the end of last year, Dagger was looking like one of our better defenders in that back line, really developed into that right back position. Taylor, you want to talk about Dagger's season and where it may or may not? I don't know if it necessarily went wrong for him.
Yeah, he was just unfortunately caught up in the Alex Freeman whirlwind. I mean, he was, he's the player that went on the back of my jersey this year. His 2024 was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Model of consistency. Swiss Army knife, I call him. He can play everywhere: left wing, central midfield, right back, right wing back. And he really had to, kind of be on the sidelines for a lot of this year because of the rise of Alex Freeman. So what I'd actually say,
you're a defender of the year.
Yeah, I do want to give an honourable mention for Brecalo, David Brecalo here.
I mean, we're open to debate, and I think honestly, he might. I don't know honourable mentions. I think he might win it. Luis, what do you think?
Yeah, stat wise, I mean, he has more clearances than the rest of the center back corps for Orlando City. He has more blocks, and he's won most of aerial duels the whole entire season. His top 10 interceptions right now with 25 plus. And he has more. He's second on start, so he has like 2,500 minutes. So to me, I just think for him not playing his position and excelling, and also being came into the team kind of injury prone, and then having, I think, the healthiest season he's had ever. I think he's definitely exceeded expectations. Now, second to that, I'll say will be Alex, because of the elite attacking he's shown. I mean, 6 goals for a right back is freaking impressive. But I think Brecalo, if you were talking about defending, I think Brecalo, I agree with Taylor there.
Yeah, Taylor, tell us more about his season and what you kind of impressed you from David this year.
Yeah, well, I was really excited when we signed this guy. Actually, seemed like a real proper Orlando City signing.
I remember you and Luis were pretty down on him in preseason. I think there was, with all the injuries, there was a lack of hope for David, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, he's right-footed as well, which, the fact he, made left back look his own is even more impressive. So, very, very good season. On Gulo, 0 goals, pitiful, absolutely pitiful output. But the fact that Carlo was a left back and Gulo is even more donkey work than he usually does this season. Not making excuses, but that's just the way the cookie crumbled, that one.
Yeah. All right. Any other thoughts on Defender of the Year? Is anybody else close to David Brecalo? I mean, Alex, we talked about, but we're giving him Young Player of the Year.
I think it's between them two. Yeah, it's between
them. I think it's between them two. I agree with Taylor.
I had Jansen down. I really thought he was going to make a resurgence year from the year before, but I think the legs are really starting to catch up to him. Yeah,
I see Robin as a coach, like defending coach, like
he would be great.
To be like in the
USL coach in the future.
Exactly. I see him into that position, like, maybe helping Orlando City at MLS Next Pro. I think he'll be tremendous. Same with Kyle Smith, I feel like.
Yeah. Veterans of the game. All right, midfield of the year. We all had Atuesta. I think we're just very excited to get a new midfielder in who can pass the ball, move the ball. He did start out really great, but I think back to the Toronto game that we just had and the Chicago game. Guy was nowhere and lost and couldn't do anything. And I think there's question marks over like Luis, I think you nailed it the other day when you said he's a box-to-box mid. He's not a defensive mid. And we've been playing him as a defensive mid all year, and I think in certain games it shows. Taylor, your thoughts on Atuesta before we decide who is our actual midfielder of the year?
What midfield? We barely had a midfield. This one's honestly really, really difficult.
It's been very chop and change, hasn't it?
So difficult. Atuesta started well. It's nowhere near enough for a midfielder of the year shout, but when we're talking about the midfield, Jabay did so much better than I thought he would. But probably some of that's because he had to play way more than a draft pick would. So it's tough. Araujo wasn't the same without Wilder. I did a Wilder, Wolverine, missing Wilder kind of meme this morning on an Orlando City UK, and I missed that guy, man.
It was really apparent this year without that double pivot, wasn't it?
Massively. So I'm really struggling to put a name. I mean, it's Atuesta, but not really. I'm still not shaking off that Toronto game.
Yeah, I mean, we could arguably put Ojeda in here again. He is a midfielder if we want
Well,
to.
I was actually going to say it has to be Ojeda. I mean, if you compare,
we'll kind of cheat and put him as even though we like to think maybe defensive mids, but this year
there's none of them really.
I think your honorable mention, I don't think he can win the award, but I think your honorable mention of Gerard Bay is very good. I of the midfielders I was most excited about in the midfield to watch this year, Gerard Bay is up there. The guy hustles. And I think for preseason, we didn't have a lot of hopes. And for what he performed throughout the season, I think he made a name for himself and showed why he should be in this squad. Such a shame it ended the way it did. And hopefully that doesn't impact too much of next year, because I really wanted him to go on and kick on into next year.
Great passer, I've got to say, Jabay. Great passer.
We're big fans of Veron here. All right. Striker of the year. We all had Enrique. Luis, can you tell us the actual stats on this one? Because it was a surprising winner, and which striker actually scored the most goals.
So, striker of the year, if we look at the striker position for Orlando City based on the depth chart, is Luis Muriel with 9 goals and 7 assists.
Which
Duncan
is
Maguire,
crazy to think.
Duncan Maguire had 4 goals and 5 assists. And then Ramiro Enrique had, it was a depth option, limited role. But, I mean, if you compare Luis Muriel across the MLS, I mean, clearly he is way on the, one of the, he's with Benteke in number of goals and assists. So he's way low. What I'm trying to say is, if you see a pattern here, is Ojeda. I believe that for striker of the year, at least my opinion is, it should be shared between Ojeda and Pasalic.
Agreed, 100%.
Yeah, I mean, it's arguably, when we say striker of the year, I'm going to be nitpicky here. I specifically put this in there to force us to pick one of our 3 strikers, but I mean, Ojeda's the guy who put the ball in the back of the net, right? I mean, there was a number 9 up there, but most of our goals came from the wingers. They came from our attacking midfielders. It wasn't a huge amount from the striking partnership. Enrique has, in Major League Soccer, which I do think is important, because a lot of Luis Muriel's goals just came in Leagues Cup and general competition. So in MLS, Enrique has 9 goals and 0 assists. Luis Muriel he has 8 goals. Luis Muriel has 9 goals and 6 assists. So Muriel more assists definitely than Enrique. Duncan, really, he had 3 goals and 2 assists in MLS. I know he's the 2 shoulder injuries. He had real issues there. So I'm not surprised it's not Duncan. I think Enrique is the one that I thought would get more minutes. Yeah. Obviously, then we sold him, to Saudi, and I know a lot of fans who are still very upset about that. Kind of blame the season going down the hill on that. I don't know if you can put it all on the Enrique signing, but Taylor, what do you think about our 3 strikers and this year? And in some ways, I was excited because I was like, great, we've got 3 good strikers, right? We've got Enrique, we've got Duncan, and we've got Muriel. We got to be able to get a lot of goals. Most MLS teams have got 1, maybe 2 that they want to put up there, and a 3rd guy. We had 3 strong candidates, and still didn't score a lot of goals from the striking position. So
no, I think depth-wise, all headed into 2025, we'd be like, wow, that's right near the top in terms of out and out number 9 striker depth. So disappointing. Enrique. What I will say on him is, apparently it was 3.3 million from Al Khalud. Reportedly that was the fee that we couldn't turn down. I think it's too far to say the whole season went because we sold him when we did, but what I will say, I'm kind of in that camp, because he was the guy in tight games that would nick you a goal, You know, all three strikers that we've got or had mid-season are very, very different. And yeah, it's really disappointing in the end. One of them's now gone and two remain. Duncan, it kills me to see kind of his decline. Obviously, he's really, really struggled with injuries. He's nowhere near the player he was 2023 when Blackburn come circling for him. Muriel, start of the season, you know, he got in better physical shape. You know, he was scoring goals. You know, he looked way more like the player we thought we were going to sign. But 9 goals, 9 assists by the end of the MLS regular season. You look what like Anders Dreyer was putting up. He's not an out-and-out striker. Sam Surridge, I'll use as the benchmark. Nashville, you know, like a bit of a journeyman in England, but you know he was right there in the Golden Boot race. Matt Doyle said at mid-season, we are just not getting deep designated player value from Luis Muriel. I hate Richarlison and Tottenham, but I would love to see Richarlison at Orlando City. I hated Nani for years. He joined my club. And he was brilliant. I would love to see the Wolves break the bank and go and get someone who's ready-made. The whole level of MLS has gone up in the last year. Certainly the last 2 seasons. The level now is jumped up massively. And I think we need someone like Richarlison. I think both strikers, if they moved on, it pains me to say, especially with Duncan, but if both moved on, I wouldn't be upset about it.
Yeah, I think if you look at the teams that are going to go far in MLS this year, it's your LAFCs, it's your Vancouvers, you know, it's your Cincinnatis, and all of those have got 1, if not 2 star players that are. Martin Ojeda is arguably like that. He just doesn't have that name recognition, but it's too much on him. In fact, you need a guy who's even better or even bigger than him to come in and take some of that spotlight away. And it's used to that, like a Nani, like a Kaka, and I think that would help him in many ways. So yeah, I'm in agreement with you. I'm going to put Ojeda in there because I think that really he was our striker of the year. He's playing a second striker role, quote unquote. So I think that's fair. And Duncan, I think, is the one who's going to be here next year. Like obviously Enrique, I think they took the money because they were going to sell him in January anyway. Right, like they always planned, I think, to overhaul our striker situation in this offseason coming.
Yeah,
I will be enraged. I will rant all day long if Luis Muriel is here next year. I've said that I wanted him out at the beginning of this year. You know, there was a minute in the season where I had thought, oh, hold on, am I gonna have to eat my words here? And is he actually gonna come good? That was just Leagues Cup. I don't know. He tried for a little bit. I don't know. But yeah, then it went back to the norm, as it were, with Luis Muriel. And now that there's supposedly only 1 year left on his very large contract, I expect us to pay him off and say bye-bye, Luis. So I think next year we're looking at new striker partnership. I mean, a brand new DP striker, I think, is definitely going to happen. Someone of the Richarlison level. And then Duncan as a backup striker, and maybe some OCB guys. Maybe they move Justin Ellis up if we can sign him to a contract.
So. Yeah,
maybe Shaq Mohammed even gets moved up. I don't know. There are some OCB strikers who you could bring up into that kind of third striker position as a backup to Duncan and whoever else. All right, let's move on and talk about MLS season results. This is always interesting when we actually look at the actual stats. So Luis said there was going to be 60 goals this year. So did Paula. I said 65. Taylor, you said 55, so you went down.
Very low.
The actual was 63. So we're pretty close.
Which is a record.
Yeah, that is a record. And that's more than last year. I mean, attacking-wise, it's probably one of the best seasons. I mean, it is the best MLS season we've ever seen for Orlando City in terms of goals and assists, right?
It is the best, and like I said, this when you see a stat like that, it's enraging that our season is done and it's over, because as an attacking outlet, obviously Muriel was behind Pasalic and Ojeda, but to be fair to them, the early stage of the season, all 3 of them were contributing. They were scoring, they were assisting. So I went really low with that 55. I was wrong because Pasalic absolutely stood up. Just looking at his stats now for the season, in the regular season, MLS, 12 goals, 5 assists. I know MLS counts, the secondary assists as assists compared to Europe, but 12 goals, 5 assists from a pretty unheralded player, amazing. So 63 goals, the most ever. The defense let us down this year. If we had our defense from the last couple years, 2023 especially, we would be in probably in a top 4 home playoff spot.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is more than last year. So most of us, I think only yourself, or I think even 55 was more than last year. So I think even you were being positive. But yeah, it went up 63, huge amount of goals. I'll have to look back and see it last year's and compare and see where we went up or down. Total goals against, there were some very, very optimistic numbers here in the defense. Luis said 37, which that's very low. I said 48. Paula said 50. You said 46. It was 51. So Paula was really close. She was one goal away from being right on the money. Your thoughts on how many goals we conceded this year?
It's too many given the current status of the Eastern Conference. I've written it a lot in previews and reviews recently. Like the Eastern Conference has been the better conference for many, many years now, but now it's such a high quality division. And 51 goals just wasn't going to cut it this year. I'm just scanning my eyes down the final kind of Eastern Conference standings. And
last year we had 50 goals conceded, so we only conceded one more goal than last year, which that seems wrong, but it's not. And then
Inter Miami conceded 55 goals, 4 goals more than us.
I mean, the East was very tight. It literally was those games we can look back at where we threw it away. Like if we hadn't have conceded the last 2-minute goals against New York or Vancouver, or name me a team this season where we threw it away last minute and gave them a last minute goal to equalize or lose the game. If you take those away, we're probably in 3rd or 4th, and we're probably closer to the numbers that we were predicting. So
I mean, 4 of those come on decision day at Toronto. So
goals scored last year was 50, and then this year was 63. So we did improve 4 goals in terms of scoring more, but we reduced by conceding 1 more than we did last year. All right, total points. Luis said 62, Paula said 65, I said 59. Taylor, you said 57. What was our total points? It was 53. Where it was below all of us, really. Your thoughts on our general points tally this season?
It's baffling how we threw it away. I'm going to read a stat that will make all of Orlando City supporters sick right now. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe this is right in what I'm saying. Orlando surrendered 13 points, 1-3 after the 80th minute alone this season. Had we held on in these games, we'd be sitting on 66 points. John alluded to it just there. The late collapses, having leads, squandering leads, and not only leads, and then late on we buckled. It's could have been a hell of a lot different. It really, really could have. And 53 points. What pains me is that it was in our destiny. On decision day. It was just a horrible, horrible performance. If we won, there was nothing Crew or the Fire could have done about it. And TFC, the second lowest scorers in the East, 4 goals in an hour. I mean, come on. So, that points tally should have been a hell of a lot more. As I cast my mind back through the regular season, it's not actually often, I haven't got the stats in front of me, but it's not actually often that we actually conceded the first goal. We took the lead in many a game. It was just handling it, and this side's been good at handling pressure under Oscar Praia for a couple of years, but that resilience just left us this season, especially the second half of the season where it collapsed.
Yeah, I mean, I think the 1-1 Montreal, the 2-1 at home to DC, that was for me there, because we'd come off the back of being away at St. Louis and won, and then we had C at home, and we lost. That's the game we threw away 2-1. And I was like, okay, we lost to Cincy, big deal. But then after that, drew with Charlotte, drew with Montreal, lost at home to New York City. I think that's the one that probably stands out the most in most people's minds in terms of throwing away.
NYCFC, if you remember, like right near the beginning of the season, Galassi gifted Hannes Wolf, and it was like barely a minute after we just got level through Muriel. So it started early on, and unfortunately, it just continued on throughout the season. The Vancouver one was the killer, wasn't it? You know, obviously we were so short-handed after the it was the international break, but yeah, that one broke me. It was the beginning of the end for me, that one, you know.
I think we'll talk about Leagues Cup in a bit, but that Leagues Cup semifinal, I think, mentally broke them.
Yeah.
And we just never, the rest of the season was then, okay, you've got to rally, you've got to get up to, you know, go push in the playoffs and do something. And I think we just kind of laid down and just kind of were waiting for the end of the season. That game in Chicago felt like, why did we bother? You know, in many ways, for a playoff game. It's the absolute opposite of what you want. All right, final position in the East. Luis says 3/4. Paula said second. I said fourth. Taylor, you said third. Ninth is what we got. So I posted a lot on social media about how I think this is a massive regression. I know the club, from their perspective, will say, hey, we got more points than last year. I don't care. You're a ninth. I think, like you said, if we'd have got 66 points, like we had thrown away those 13 points, even if we had not thrown away half of those 13 points, we would have come where we predicted in third or fourth. If we'd have got all of those 13, we would have been first. We would have been where Philly are. Yeah. So that's just the way things go sometimes.
Yeah.
But those missed points, those opportunities against, you know, other Eastern clubs where we threw away, you know, 1 or 3 points, that came back to bite us, and that's how we ended up in ninth, especially at the end of the season. We had it in our hands to come in fifth, sixth, and we did not. You know, the loss to Toronto, that, you know, the Vancouver one I can accept. Okay, you messed up, you let this guy, but then to not have a reaction after that, we had it in our hands to go to Toronto and not have to play in the wildcard game, and we just couldn't do that. So I blame us for finishing ninth. That's all on us, in my opinion. Taylor, your kind of thoughts on, you know, where we ended up and how we got there?
Nowhere near good enough. The wildcard game is not the playoffs; it is the play-in game by name. MLS somehow, you know, has marketed it as part of the playoffs. It's not. So Oscar Perez made the playoffs 5 consecutive seasons, not 6 in my book.
I agree.
But teams like Charlotte and Nashville, so the top 3, Union, you know, come from nowhere, but they've got a very good roster, you know, good coach in Bradley Carnell. It's still a surprise they won it, but very good team. You know, everyone knows what a Union team is. Cincinnati and Miami, you know, 2 of the stronger teams, were right up there. I'm looking at kind of Charlotte FC and Nashville. Dean Smith, BJ Callahan, really, really improved both of those sides this year. NYCFC, you know, have won MLS Cup before. The East is so tough nowadays. But as I say, it's not an excuse. What I go back to is, this is despite the lack of central midfield depth, which I think killed us as well. But this is the strongest roster I believe we've had in MLS, certainly attacking, as we've discussed. So with that roster at your disposal, I know it's, you know, every league worldwide is you know, an enduring slog, MLS particularly, you know, but no, with the roster we had, we should have done better, and we were in the positions, as I say, to, you know, probably max out on 66 points if we hadn't blown all those leads. So yeah, super disappointing, and a massive regression, to use your words. And what happens next? You know, if Papi goes, I understand why. I love the guy, but if he goes, I understand why. You know, this club has big ambitions. And it was a regression this year, plain and simple.
Yeah. I mean, last year's 4th in the East, and then obviously the Eastern Conference final. Predictions this year for us, Luis was saying Eastern Conference semis, Paulo was saying MLS champs. I said Eastern Conference final, and Taylor, you said MLS champs. I didn't realize that until I looked back, but that's very hopeful for you.
You got to believe.
I like the optimism.
Yeah,
Hey, if we
looking
had
back,
the third away those 13 points, we might be MLS champs.
Looking back now, it's all ifs, buts, maybes. But last year, I know the Galaxy were very, very good, but last year was our chance to get it. Touching distance, weren't we? When we'll be that close again, I really don't know. It's so hard to predict Major League Soccer, but the wild card game is something I don't think was in any of our vocabulary until the last couple of weeks of the season.
I looked at that table. If you told me to come ninth, I'd be like, something went wrong, because as tight as the East is, I think sixth would have been like as low as if you had said like if it goes really bad, I'll be like, okay, maybe we're sixth, seventh, but ninth,
horrendous.
No, not a good season. All right, other competitions that we were in. Leagues Cup. Luis said quarterfinals. Paula said semifinals. She was bang on the money. I said quarterfinals. Taylor, you said round of 16. Of course, it was the semifinals. I put brackets fourth place because I think it's important to specify the fact that we did not get a medal. We did not finish in the top three. We did not get Champions Cup. We got a nothing burger out of this competition by the end of it. Your thoughts on Leagues Cup and how that may have distracted us from the league.
Well, first of all, congrats, Paula. Bang on, like you said, semi-finals. But it was the straw that broke the camel's back. Unfortunately, looking back, everyone knows kind of I boycotted Leagues Cup last season. For me, any competition that changes its rules every season is not a serious competition in my book. But hey ho. We were back in it this year, but I was happy to give it a go because the Open Cup started again. We'll come on to Open Cup. But, it captured the imagination. I've got to be honest with you. If your side's winning, it doesn't matter what tournament it is, it's good for the club. There were some real memorable victories in there. The Necaxa one, we absolutely blew them out of the water. But I was so disappointed in that third place match because it's hard to win trophies. I've said that as a Major League Soccer club, you have few opportunities a season to do it. There's only a couple trophies. So many people are going for them, throwing so much money at it. So it's very difficult to win stuff. I so wanted to take something from this season, and the place in the Champions Cup would have been, we've been in it twice before. We've not gone deep in it, but it's the key to growing the club on the bigger world stage, having more eyeballs on you, getting more kudos as a club. And I've enjoyed the Champions Cup. It's North America's pinnacle when it comes to club competition. So the fact we were so kind of, I'd say disinterested is too hard. The boys fought for it out there in Carson, but the game passed us by. And it's a really poor Galaxy team as well. They were at home, of course, but it was really, really poor considering how horrendous their season was, that we couldn't get Champions Cup. And like you said, John, as well, the fact we got a nothing burger out of it. It was the worst possible thing for our season, really, because we put so much into it, took away nothing, and then from that moment, we'd given so much gas to that competition that the roster just couldn't compete after that. I really think, looking back, hindsight, wonderful thing, but the roster building I was happy with in the winter, but the lack of central midfield depth. I mean, by the end of the Leagues Cup, we had ran Cesar Araujo and Eduard Atuesta into the ground. You saw Kyle Smith, having to step in there. That was an oversight as far as I'm concerned. There's plenty of MLS vets, natural centre midfielders that we could have done with, heading down the stretch. So, Leagues Cup's a weird one. I was proud of what we did in it. To get to the semi-final of any competition, you got to be a good team. It was a very good team, but Adrian Marine and Carson happened. It was gutted.
I tend to agree on the lack of depth. I think that the defensive mid, they brought in Atuesta after Wilder went, and I think we were hopeful there. And I think there's a lot of sort of like patchwork on trying to make a midfield, be something after we lost Wilder. And I also think that something I've been critical of all the year, and even in the preseason, I said I think we're missing a center back because he doesn't play Thomas Williams.
It just doesn't play him.
It doesn't matter. We saw that even more this year. Like at that last game, was it the Toronto game where he could have put him in? It's like put Kyle Smith there, put Dagger down at left back, do anything but to put an actual center back in Thomas Williams. So I thought all season we've been light on center back, and then we decided to use Brekala, who is one of those three center backs, as a left back. So really, then you've got all three of your center backs on the field most games in Brekala, Schlegel, and Jansen. There's no backup center back. There was no real backup left back because Rafa Santos was so bad, and then Marion has got to be the number one bust signing of the year for sure. Like I don't want to pile on him too much because he might be here next year and he might turn out to be okay and good. But I was hopeful that we'd fix our left back problems, and it just seems that we have another left back problem.
Yeah, quick word on him while we're just covering left back. It's not like me, people have been used to how I talk about the club, the last decade or so, and it's not like me to single people out, but I've just not seen it with him, and I have called him out the last couple of weeks because there's just a real lack of effort, a real lack of quality there. From a guy as well who's played, season La Liga, made many appearances in La Liga, good level of football, Europa League, and he's strolled around in his time in a purple shirt. And I wrote in my my autopsy, after the wildcard match, you get some European-based players who it's their first season in MLS and they kind of think it'll be a cakewalk. I don't know that as fact. I'm just talking about what I've seen as a supporter, but it's nowhere near good enough. And if he's moved on, I wouldn't be sad about it at all. Like we said, I want Rafa Santos back, and he had his flaws. And he had his flaws.
I want a left back who's as good as our right backs. That's what I want, right? If you look at Alex and Dagger, those are options at right back. Left back is, we didn't have any balance all year. No. You talk about how much work Angulo had to do on the on defensive side because whoever was at left back, he's having to put in extra work, right? I just want a left back who can hold his own on that side of the field.
100%, and if the supporters and patience had run out, even Paredes did at decision day, hauled him off half time. I think that speaks volumes, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and I don't want to rule out Marin from turning it around because we have seen players in this league that have come in and struggled and then had a full preseason and been able to do something in year two. But I think if he's here next year, I think a lot of people will say we need to see something, or else why have you brought him back, right? He was a temporary fix, but if he becomes a permanent feature, then he needs to show why he deserves to be here, and I just don't think we've seen that yet. U.S. Open Cup, this one, Luis said the finals, Paula said champs. I said champs, and Taylor, you said final. We really thought U.S. Open Cup was going to be our thing. To be fair, we were knocked out, by the winners in the round of 16 in the Nashville game that was 3-2. After I believe we'd played it was back-to-back games at that point in the season. We played Wednesday, Saturday, and then I think this game was the one that we didn't rotate for. You can blame Oscar for that if you wish, and then they just looked more lively and had more energy. And we lost 3-2 to them, and that was the end of the Open Cup, and they went on to win it. So I don't think that kind of, for me, I don't hate being knocked out by the winner. It's a little bit of a pass, right? You could say, okay, well, they went on to win it, but going out in round of 16 is pretty disappointing for a tournament that clearly we had high hopes for.
Yeah, another one that really stung. Obviously, we all love the Open Cup. We won it in 2022. It was amazing. But why this one really stings? Past up Champions Cup qualifications stung to a degree. No, it did sting for me. But this even more because not every MLS club was in it this year. We lost to the winners, and Nashville's a side I don't like them. Really. That's mostly to do with Gary Smith. He's not there anymore, but I don't like Nashville. But fair play to them. They went and won it. But there were some big hitters that weren't in the tournament this year. Into Miami, I think LAFC weren't in it. So it was a very winnable competition. I know the game's not played on paper, but at the beginning of the competition, you thought, okay, we can go quite far in this. The only really memorable thing from the Open Cup this year was trashing the Rowdies again, 5-0.
Yeah, that was a great away day. I gotta
Great,
say,
great away day. Yeah, one for the real diehards. The nostalgia of going down there. A member of ours, Josh Keeble, really devoted Orlando City supporter, went over and watched the team at least 4 times this year. He went down to Tampa for that game. Had an amazing,
he loved it.
experience. Yeah, down at Owl Lang, and
for a guy from England, that's an away day, right?
that's
That's the closest thing we get to an English away day was
100%.
going on the bus to Tampa on a Wednesday for
100%.
an Open Cup game where that we just packed that place out. There was no Rowdies fans. It was just all Orlando City fans, really.
It's purple smoke galore.
Yeah, we got a brace from our 16-year-old. It was. That's a lot of fun. So we did well in Florida this year. Apart from the Leagues Cup, Miami, I think there was a point where we were beating all our rivals. We'd beaten Atlanta. We'd beaten Charlotte. We'd beaten Miami. Like the Southeast at one point in the season, we were the top dog, and then it all sort of fell off from there. All right, Taylor, that is all of our predictions for the season. As we had here at the end of the video, I wanted to give you a chance to kind of give us your general thoughts or anything else that you want to mention on this platform as we go into the off season with big changes potentially coming.
Yeah, tough season, tough season. I'll round it up by saying, 2 top 4 finishes, is very, very good. And there's been so much pride in this team. The last couple of years, really strange this season, how it panned out. It's been unlike any of our other seasons in Major League Soccer. The wheels just fell off at the worst possible moment. I had so much hope and promise in this team for much of the year, to be honest with you. An entertaining team. But then, when things were starting to go wrong, the familiar stale tactics, the park the bus, there was a desperation about how we were trying to do things. And what I'll end up by saying is that I'm a massive, massive Oscar Breyer fan. Always will be a club legend, from this point, whatever happens. But I think his race is run. In Orlando. When it was James O'Connor, it's a long time ago now, but when it was James O'Connor, the club was swift in, kind of saying, thank you, James, but you're not the man, and they moved for Oscar. There has been no announcement yet. I know nothing. I don't know if anyone knows anything, but he signed a new deal back in the spring. So he could still very much be the front office's guy. Only time will tell, but it has been a regression this year. And I think, and it pains me to say this because nobody's wanted Oscar to lift MLS Cup more than me, but I think we need a change in direction now. I think, kind of parking the bus, stale tactics, they have worked on the road a lot for the last, few years, but at home I saw it too much this season, especially with the talent we've got. So yeah, it pains me, but I think if he's moved on, I will understand why. Is how I'll finish this.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like I said, we've taken a massive regression, and yes, we signed him to a new contract, but that doesn't. I mean, this is football. People constantly fire their managers on very long-term contracts. If you want to make a change, the club will make a change. I think it really just depends on how Ricardo's thinking about all of this. And one thing I mentioned on the pod on Thursday was that he, I think people forget that he's a fan and he watches all the games like us, and he can be just as frustrated as us. And he built a team that he believed was going to win something this year and was going to really compete at the top, and we didn't do that. So he sees all of that. He recognizes all of that. I think for at this point, he's got to go away and have those conversations with the ownership and see, do we want to roll the dice and go ahead and find a new manager? I think for me, I'm at the same point where you're at. Oscar has done a great job here, but I think this season was the one where I think we gave him all the pieces and we really kind of took a step backwards. And I said that before the season that I wanted to see him, you know, take us even further. We'd gone little bits of progression. This year, we took that massive regression. And my fear is that 12 months from now, you know, we could see the same thing, but with a bunch of different players. So we're at a point here where there's so many key contracts that are expiring. It's a real, you know, time for the club to make major changes. And I think all the players you bring in, you want to bring them in for the right manager. I think if we bring in players for Oscar and Oscar's system and then it doesn't really work, then you're going to have to change the players and the coach in 12 months from now. Look at Atlanta, right? They spent 60 million on a bunch of players and it didn't work. And then you got to change the manager. So I think we're in a scenario here where we're not tied to a lot of squad. We're not really tied to a manager if we want to move on from there. We can do what we want to do in terms of a major overhaul or not a major overhaul. But this is the time to do it when you've got a lot of these contracts expiring. And I believe that's why we've come to the end of this Oscar era. And it's been a long time. I think for us guys that watch English game all the time, we're used to managers being fired within, you know, 2 years, a year, if they don't perform and show those results. And I think at MLS, you get a longer leash, which is, it's nice in some ways because you're able to build a project and not have all that pressure. But when it starts to go the wrong way, then it's time to go. In football or soccer, I always say you're either a club that's on the up or you're a club that's on the down. And until this point, I think we've been on the up. And now I really feel like this year we're on the down. So you got to change that trend. You got to do something. Let's see whether Oscar's here next year. Let's see how many of these key players are here next year and see where we go from there. Thank you very much, Taylor, for being here on the pod with me. Appreciate you so much. Luis was here, but he had to run. You know, he's got things to do. We're all very busy. Thank you for being here in the off season with us. We appreciate you all. If you can go ahead and drop a like on the video, comment, let us know what you thought about this season. You know, let us know if you have anything you want to talk about based on what we discussed here, or whether you're an Oscar in or you're an Oscar out guy. We'd love to hear your opinions on that too. We are going to be here all off season to produce more content for you. And anytime there's any big news, we will be going live. So if anything happens in this off season, come to Loud and Proud Orlando. Will be the place where we want you guys to join in the comments and discuss it all with us. Thank you very much for being here, and vamos Orlando.
Vamos Orlando.